What's up guys, super long video here, but it's got all the details and I actually videoed the entire process, so it's not really like a walkthrough, it's actually a video of me installing the gears. Someone on Patreon page asked for that and I just made it all into one long video. So here is putting the gears out of the new 2025 Gen 3 XMR1000 into a 2023 Gen 3 XMR700. It's about an 18% gear reduction. Do the math. That's all in another video. Check the description for links to that video. Also, a shout out to Aztex Tires and gear reductions. The Black Friday sale is still going on, and it's going on until Saturday, which is December 7th. So you've got about 1 or 2 more days to get 15% off a set of tires or gear reduction. And this is everything on the website. So all the tires that we have on Tarachi.com. I'm putting this out as a reminder because people are going to complain that they missed it. What's up guys? A lot of people have been asking for this video, finally getting around to doing it. So we got the gears out of the new XMR1000 G3, and we're going to put those gears into this XMR700. This is one of the first XMR700s. It's actually a 2023. Most of them are 2024s or 2025s. And those two gears right here represent a significant gear reduction over what comes in this XMR700. Now, like I've said in 4 or 5 different videos, this transmission unit is used in all the new G3 ATVs, and it's also used in some of the G3 side-by-sides like the HD7. Because of that, you can play games with swapping these gears around to get yourself a gear reduction. This gear reduction affects low, high, and reverse because these two gears go straight down to the bevel gear, which goes out to the diffs, so it's after the shifter part of the transmission. So it's a great mod, and you don't really need it, by the way. This thing turned these 33-inch Aztecs very well with stock gearing, to be honest. Low range was already very low, but when you put the 33s on there, you weren't gonna be able to skim it in high range anymore. So I'm mostly doing these gears for high range and reverse improvements. The low range is already excellent. Of course, more torque is always welcome. I think with these gears, you could turn a 35-inch Tarachi Aztec. So if you're wondering, there is the part number, 56 tooth. There's the other part number, 43 tooth. If you want to know the exact percentages and ratios, I have another video on that. It's kind of confusing because this thing already has HD7 gears in it, which is like a 4 or 5% gear reduction. Now I'm going to the 1000 gears. So depending what model you have is going to change the amount of gear reduction you get from these gears. A lot of gear reduction guys just pretend that their gears give you a certain amount of reduction no matter what model you have. That's bullshit. Prime example is the Rancher 420. Depending if you have the 420, the IRS, or a 500, if you put a secondary reduction, you're gonna get a different amount of reduction because from the factory, the teeth counts are different between models. So yeah, you can swap gears back and forth, but it's gonna be a smaller improvement on some models than others. All that to say, if you put these gears in a base model, it's a huge reduction. So if you want to buy a base model and snorkel it yourself and throw these gears in it, you've got a torque monster. Now, is it going to cause problems with the speedometer? Maybe, we'll see. I haven't tried these yet, but with the 5% gears I have in there so far, it's been fine. So just an overview of what we're going to do. I'll put the GoPro on and show you step by step, but we're going to remove this piece of the floorboard. This piece will come out too just because it's easy. We're not going to mess with this plastic up here. There's not really a need to. It's not too much work. Then we're going to pull out these 2 bolts and nuts, get this brake pedal out of our way, and we'll pull off this little bolt and nut down here which holds this rear brake line, move some wires around, and then we'll take off those screws, pop off that cover, throw the gears in, put the cover back on, and you're good to go. Make sure you have some oil to put back in there, and I don't know the torque specs. I just put them on good and tight. That's what I did with these HD7 gears, and they've been working great. I'll show you when I do that in the video. All right, step 1 is to remove some plastic clips, which are everybody's favorite. I like to use these pliers. They seem to work the best for me. There's some back here. You could also jack it up and pull the tires off if you wanted to. Mine is so high that it's a comfortable work height on these 33s with like the 2-inch lift I've got on here. So I'm not going to bother jacking it up. I usually don't put these kind of details in the videos, but about 1 million people asked for them last time I did this install. So I figured to avoid all those questions, I would just go ahead and put all the freaking details. It's gonna make the video longer, and then those same people will complain that the video is too long. And that's just how YouTube is. Alright, I got a handful of clips. I got this piece off, that comes off very, oh, some packages just arrived, very nice. Got that piece off. This piece is free because I pulled the clip down here, we can leave that in place. Now we got to take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 millimeters. These have nuts on the bottom, these do not, and there's also a 7th one back here. Zip off all of these. The dirt falling out of my floorboard. Now these guys, it's easier to just come from the bottom. And then you got the one back here. These are probably the most stout floorboards I've ever seen fitted in ATV. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's free. There we go. All right. With the floorboard out of the way, we can see our next obstacle is going to be this brake. Alright, get the spring off. You don't need a ton of room, we just need this kind of out of the way. I think that'll really be fine right there. There we go. Okay. Alright, we got that off. It was a M4 Hex, by the way. And that's nice and rusty in there on this 2023 model. LOL. Okay, now we've got a couple wires to deal with. So this is zip tied on the cover. We obviously need to remove the cover. So we're gonna get these zip ties cut. And that'll give us enough room to get the cover off. You've got all those 8 millimeters all the way around it. Of course, some oil is going to come out, so we're gonna grab a drain pan. I just changed the oil in the sub-transmission, so I'm not going to bother completely draining it. That would probably be a good idea if you haven't changed your sub-transmission oil recently. Put the transmission in park. So these two, this thread's have oil on it again. That's interesting. These two bottom ones are obviously a little hard to get square on, but it's a decent socket. You can get them off just like that. Could have gone to a shorter socket and a wobble extension or something, but didn't even have to go there. This cover, by the way, from Can-Am, when I bought this machine, was missing a few bolts. So ever since then, it's kind of been leaky, and I probably should be replacing the gasket behind it. But of course, I didn't order that, so we're just going to do the old, we're just going to probably copper coat the original gasket that's there. I think it's a metal gasket. And then we got to get our, not a pry bar or chisel or punch. Come in here and use it like a pry bar. Now it's really dumping. All right, so there's the cover. It's got one bearing in it. So the bottom gear is supported on both sides. The top gear is just supported on the one side. And that's why the top gear has a nut on it. So the way I did this last time was I left that bottom gear on, and then I set the brake so it wouldn't drive away on me. And I just hit that with an impact until it came off. And then when I put it on there, I put a ton of Loctite. So we'll probably do that same sort of thing again. Let's go ahead and get our gasket out of the way. We're reusing this, so we're not going to bend it or anything. I'm going to put some copper coat on that when we reinstall it. Yeah, the oil in there looks nice and clean though, which is surprising. Because I thought that rear output shaft seal was going out, but it seems to have started sealing again, which is kind of excellent, I suppose. This is a 894. It's like 2 or 3 generations old now. But it's usually enough to do light stuff like this. So even with all the Loctite I put on there, DeWalt made easy work of getting that nut off. And unlike, to put it in neutral, the gear comes off way easier. Unlike Honda, Can-Am uses slightly like helical cut, pretty machine gears for this piece. Honda uses a lot of straight cut gears, and in their diffs, they're starting to use a lot of cast gears, which is kind of sad. Even on something like a Talon, it's higher horsepower, it's got cast gears in it. So there's the bottom gear, aka the big gear. Here, this one's a little stuck on there, just like the bottom one. Hands are nice and oily now, excellent. Just pry on that very gently. I think it's all the Loctite I put on there, some of it got in the threads maybe, the splines. Okay. So as you can see, our driven gear is getting much bigger, and our drive gear is getting smaller, and that's what a gear reduction is, right? It's just a system of levers, so that's what we expect to see. The part number and the little QR code faces out. Okay, so these are my old gears. These are actually gears I bought for an HD7. Nothing really to say here. They came off very easily, and they look like they're in good condition. So if anybody wants those, you can have them. If you want to put those into a base model for a decent gear reduction, or to put them in an XMR700 for a small gear reduction. There's the new gears. Those are the 1000 gears. They fit in there with plenty of space all the way around the gear. You could honestly get a little bit more gear reduction out of this if Can-Am wanted to, but this is going to be plenty. The gasket, it does use a gasket, and it's a metal gasket, and I didn't have a new one, so I'm just copper coating it. And I'm going to reuse it like I did last time. By the way, this is the easiest gear reduction I've ever done in my life. Taking a lot longer on this one because I'm kind of talk you guys through it a little bit. Line these up. It's a very precise fit, very premium gears. Frickin' Can-Am. Put it back in park on that shaft. Yeah, I should clean the old stuff off, yada yada yada, yeah, whatever. Put a nice dab of that on there. Probably too much, but whatever. And like I said, I don't know this torque spec, so I'm just gonna put it good and tight with that thread locker. So I did last time, and it's worked fine for the last several hundred miles. Boop. All right, that's it. The rest of the process is just to do everything I showed you in reverse. Okay, so putting this thing back together, we've got our gasket that we just copper coated. We'll go ahead and put that on this side. Stick it on that dowel pin. And the gasket's still kind of tacky, so hopefully it'll hold itself in place like that. Very nice. So we can install this part, because one of the dowel pins stayed in the cover. I don't feel like transferring it to the other side because I'm freaking lazy. So you're engaging that bottom bearing first. That's why this thing fits kind of tight. Make sure you don't pinch any wires. And there you go. Get our bolts. They're all the same length. Very convenient. Start in the center. Work your way out. I just kind of held onto this to keep it from spinning, in case you're confused by that. Okay, that's mounted. Now we got to put a couple zip ties for all these wires. We cut some zip ties that were holding them. This secures our rear master cylinder to the frame. And then we need the spring. This little spring on here. Good to go. And that's pretty much it. Let me get this floor jack out of the way. I just leaned it over to keep the oil from dripping while I was putting the cover on. All these bolts are about the same, so I'm not really paying attention to which holes they go in because it doesn't matter. These 4 on the sides, these 4 have the washers though. And then the 5th one back here also has a washer. And these 2 have the nuts on the bottom. Now do not forget that you have to put oil back in this transmission. It'd probably been easier to do that before I put the brake on, but I use a pump anyways to pump oil into there. So yeah, don't forget to put oil back in your tranny. If you want to do it like Can-Am says, I think they say to put the same oil in the engine in here. I put 80-90 weight gear oil because it's a gearbox and I like to put gear oil in gearboxes. Probably doesn't matter either way. But like I said earlier, I'm pretty hard on my stuff. This little fender piece has little fingers that you have to engage when you install it. Fairly ingenious. I have knocked it loose a few times hitting water like really fast, but overall, I do like the plastics on this thing. That's pretty much it. Just put your plastic clips in, stick your cover and your seat back on, and you're done. Again, don't forget to put oil back in here. The oil fills right there. If you're smarter than me, you could put oil in it before you put the brakes on and be a little less of a hassle. I could probably pull those out in 2 seconds anyway, but whatever. So yeah, now I've got a serious gear reduction, and if I wasn't making a video, I could literally install this whole thing in 20 minutes.